Anna has just finished her speech to Dido, asking her to search her feelings, question her why she's not able to give into a pleasing love, having rejected the suitors of Africa. And at this point, we see what the result of that speech is in the mind of Dido and what they do after that. So beginning with line 54 of Book 2, or Book 4, excuse me. Book 4, well done, you're already finished with Book 2. His tictis, this is a nice transitional thing, ablative of absolute. After these things were said, after Anna's speech is complete, she does this to her incensunt animum. She does it with that. Okay? Couple more verbs. She dedits spem to the dubii menti, and she solvits her pudor, the shame, chastity, the restraint. So, in line 56 then, first of all, now you'll see that our verbs are plural. Why? This will be Dido and Anna working together to do these following things. So they go to the temples, and they do just as Anna had suggested. We need to make sacrifices. We need to ask permission of the gods to do this, to make this right. There's some technical language here in the process of the sacrificing itself. Let's make sure you understand that. So they mactant bidentis are our bidentes that have been lectast de more, by custom. And the gods to whom the sacrifice is made are then listed. Legiferai Keri, and Poibo, and Patri Leaio. Please check your book for who that is and why that's significant. But before all, of course, Eunoni. She is the antecedent of the relative pronoun qui. And what is she predominantly concerned with? It is indeed one of Juno's responsibilities as a goddess. She oversees marriage, all things related to marriage. What you also see here in kui and kurai are an example of the double dative construction, for to whom the bonds of marriage are for a care. So just so you have that, kui, kurai, double dative. Okay. Moving on then. We start to see the act of the sacrifice itself, starting at ipsa tenes. So ipsa is going to be describing pulcherrima Dido. She is lovely, she is infelix, she is pulcherrima. We also have a present participle describing this action. She is tenens dextra pateram. What on earth is that? Your facing glossary tells you that a patera is a shallow bowl used in libations. My, that's remarkably helpful, isn't it? This is an image of a small statuette, a votive goddess, or a votive image rather, of a Roman assuming a proper position for sacrifice. You can tell this by the fact that the head is covered. The head is always covered for a sacrifice, and in the right hand, as the right hand is the proper hand for things, the dextra, as opposed to the left hand, sinistra. And it is this shallow dish which will have wine in it, and as you make your prayers to the gods, you pour that wine onto the altar itself. That is your wine offering to the gods. So that's a patera. That's what it looks like. That's how it functions. And again, this is a small votive statuette, probably a piece no more than 5 inches tall. Okay? All right. So that's what she's doing. She fundits then. She fundits that wine from the libation. Intermedia cornua of the cadentes vaccae. So that's our sacrificial animal. Now, out in the next line is difficult to translate directly into the English. Think of it more as an et instead. And before the ora deum, that's deorum syncopated, your note is useful there to tell you that this is in front of the votive images of all of the gods. And pinguis is pingues. Okay. Shispatiaturs. And this is a lovely deponent verb. She walks carefully in front of the faces of the gods to the rich altars. They're rich in the fact that they have multiple layers of evidence of sacrifice on them prior to hers. Okay. And she instaurats the diem with donis and in hians, this is describing Dido. Okay. This is a little more specific about our sacrificed sheep at this point, which were mentioned up here in Bidentes. Okay. And with the reclusis pectoribus, that's an ablative absolute. Please work that out. So with the ablative absolute of the sheep, gazing in, Dido consulits aspirantia exta. That's something we see every day in our contexts of life and the living of it, but something quite common in the ancient world. The next passage is a bit unique. Virgil has given permission to the narrator of this within the poem, permission to speak and express some opinion of what's happening here. How vatum ignarae mentes, quid vota furentem, quid de lubra juant. Work those out. We as the omniscient reader have the pain and pleasure of either knowing what's about to happen or having a really good clue about what's going to happen. And in that respect, how does any sort of religious practice help or support in knowing what's coming for Dido? The est that you see right here is not a form of sum. It is not a form of sum. It is not a form of sum. It comes from the verb edo, which means to eat. Now I want you to consider how we have seen all of our words of fire used previously to this. And how is that usage either consistent or different? Molis, is that moles, describing medullas? Meanwhile, all this is happening, and etacitum vulnus vivits sub pectora. More language of fire. Urritur. Our beautiful Dido is now our infelix Dido in a span of a few brief lines. And now she's furrents. Vagatur here is going to be more of a middle use of our verb. Vagor, she wanders. And then we have our simile. Qualis. Let's make sure that everything is good to go in this simile. This is incredibly important and very powerful. For those of you who hunt, this should make some better sense. Okay? So what I want you to take away from the simile is being able to tell me to what is Dido being compared. Coniecta sagita is the noun adjective pair here. Quam has as its antecedent kerwa. Okay? So just as it, which far off, among the Crisian forest. Okay. Incautam describes the antecedent of quam again. Finally, we find a main verb. It's a pastor. He's agenzin. He's doing it with talis. And he liquids a voltale ferum. The pastor is nescios as he does this. Illa is our kerwa. Okay? So illa, fuga is ablative in flight. Here's the main verb. Okay, dictaios describes saltus. And this is the image the simile ends with, and your assignment ends with. Letalis describes haurundo, it means reed, which is what the shaft of an arrow would have been made with. This is the nominative singular subject of this passage. Consider how that simile ends. Consider how you think that will apply to Dido.